back. This is the 𝗕𝗂𝗴𝗆 podcast. My name is 𝗦𝘂𝘂𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. I am in podcasting headquarters, as you can tell, in Naples, Florida. It's not really my backdrop, but we'll pretend that it is. I'm excited to have this particular episode, the theme of which is going to be how incumbent players that are dealing with insurance-related items and how technology, what sort of dialogue should they have? And we're going to use this particular episode to have that discussion with two folks that are going through this now and have been going through it for a little while. I have 𝗧𝗲𝗏 from Butler University and David McFarlin from Sunlight Solutions. And welcome to you both.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Nick. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So let's put some context to this at first. So let's give the audience a flavor of who you are and what your institution/company does, so that we can kind of spring from there about how the dialogue went between you two and what we can learn from that. Zach, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I'm 𝗧𝗲𝗏. I'm director of the 𝗦𝘂𝘀𝘂𝗃 Risk Management and Insurance Academic Program here at Butler University. I've been here for about 10 years now and came to help establish our undergraduate program, which we were very pleased to be recognized as one of the 9th largest programs in the nation in 2019. Since that time, we've now got our online Masters of Risk and Insurance. And so I wear a lot of hats at Butler. I'm a faculty member in the program, both undergraduate and graduate, with a focus on the classes that involve our student-run captive insurance company. And that's really my other role at Butler. I'm the Chief Risk Officer and Chief Underwriting Officer for the world's only student-run insurance company, the MJ Student-Run Captive, domiciled out of Bermuda.
Yep, I love that story. For anyone that's followed me, you know that I interviewed Zach. He was in year one of my set of interviews when I first started my podcast. So the whole student-led captive thing is just a phenomenal combination of actual insurance experience given to a student population. So hats off to you. David McFarlin, talk about your company and what you do.
Thanks, Nick, and it's nice to be back. Sunlight is a extremely flexible cloud-based solution to manage all key insurance operations at an extremely high level. Policy, billing, claims being at the core of what we do, sitting on top of our rating and rules engine. But we've certainly tiptoed outside the traditional boundaries of core policy administration. We have our own form solution. We handle CRM and agency management, distribution management. We have a growing library of web services and APIs, reporting. So, and that kind of rounds out our solution anyway. We like to think of Sunlight as a platform where our insurance clients can quickly design and deploy any insurance product, where they can utilize AI and automation and analytics to make their users and to make our system smarter. And we spend a lot of time, especially recently, working on our policyholder and agent portals to provide a nicer engagement experience for them too. So we've pretty much hit on the gambit of policy admin.
Good. Well, now that we have that as a backdrop, let's sort of level set with the problem that's at stake. So Zach, why don't you talk about what for the MJ Captive, the captive at Butler, talk about, your particular captive. This isn't something where you can just go get an ISO form and kind of do that. Why don't you talk about the unique characteristics of the captive, what you face and how your situation, maybe even compare and contrast your situation with a company that would be considered like an incumbent insurer?
Yeah, so we set up a student-run insurance company. I mean, insurance is one of the only products that you could buy, and if you don't have a claim, you'd never even know you had a good product or not. If you have bad accounting or finance or marketing, it's immediately apparent. A bad insurance or risk management, unless you're facing a global pandemic, for instance, you wouldn't necessarily know that risk management's not going so well. So we wanted to create an experience that makes it real. We insure our bomb sniffing dog, our care dog, our live mascot. We insure the liability associated with our student-run businesses that our sophomores run. and we insure a lot of our fine art and scientific equipment on campus. And so what this allows us to do is rate those items, do loss control of those items, interact with the owners of those risks, and really help to make the university a better place for everyone. And so the brilliance of it, it's very, it's a fully licensed insurance company in Bermuda, but we're essentially running it out of Excel, right? I mean, there's not a lot to our operations here. We got to rate 3 dogs, we've got to rate, 30 student-run businesses, and we've got, $4 million for the pianos and some other things. And so there's not a level of sophistication to it. I mean, I ran a $900 million captive in my career in Excel, just the same kind of way. And so, when we set up the student-run captive, we always had this plan. Right now we're a Class 1 captive. We can only insure the risks of Butler University. And so we stick to really small risks that we all joke, won't get Professor Finn fired and working at Arby's if it goes awry. But we try to stick to those kind of risks and keep it simple. But we always had this idea that, as we establish this online Masters of Risk program, and we're working with, Fortune 500 risk managers and underwriters and all these interesting people in that program, which we're running right now, by the way, we wanted to take our captive to Class 2, maybe a Class 3 captive, start looking at selling commercial insurance products to others. So we've had discussions with the Indianapolis Airport about insuring their bomb sniffing dogs, with the Shriners about insuring their care dogs. But I had this epiphany.
Because you in the risk management of the program, you have expertise in this now.
Yeah. I mean, I had the Minister of Finance in Bermuda pull me aside and say, Zach, did your students really do this business plan? I won't be mad if they didn't, but I need to know, because we had 6 Fortune 500 companies this month that all get kicked back 6 times, and yours is going on the first time. Did the students really do it? And my answer was, yeah, they did. I mean, it was, there's only 80 so insurance and risk manager programs out there. So there's not a lot of people running around that have the experience that I have, but it's not like it's not replicatable. And that's one of the things that I saw in my Fortune 500 risk manager career. That's why I left it, is because, when I got to be a Fortune 500 risk manager, I thought all risk managers were like me. And I ran into Fortune 500 companies where, they don't know what an umbrella policy is. And again, because, if you don't have a claim, you may not know you have bad risk management or bad insurance. And so, my mission has been to really shine a light on the importance of risk management and insurance through our programs here at Butler. And what we want to do in our master's program is take it to the next level. Look at ways that we could sell products. And not only that, but, show people how to set up captives like this. I mean, with the pandemic, one of the futures that I see for insurance is Tesla becoming an insurance company. That's happening, right? Google becoming an insurance company. That's happening. McDonald's franchisees don't buy insurance from Liberty Mutual. They buy it from McDonald's. And in a world where you can't get pandemic insurance, how do you deal with that? You start to monetize other risks that you have. If you're a Fortune 500 risk manager and you got a captive, you start thinking, geez, if I'm going to get sued for my supply chain for product liability anyway, if I'm going to have to deal with the recall anyway, why don't I just sell these guys recall and liability insurance and get that third-party risk, and then I can sell myself pandemic insurance to get a tax deduction? And so captives are the future for how to spread risk, and InsurTech has lowered the bar. The barrier to keeping, Google and Tesla and others from becoming insurance companies in the past that could really compete against the traditional industry was really that back office function of what insurers do. And, again, if you haven't spent time in, 2 academic programs like I have, it's really kind of hard to understand how insurance carriers work. They have different accounting, they have that investment component, they're state regulated. And what InsurTech has done in technology like David's, it's lowered the bar, it's leveled the playing field. And so I had this epiphany, like, geez, I'm out here on LinkedIn purporting that the future of insurance is, companies using captives and InsurTech to monetize risk management. We're about to run a Class 2 commercial insurance company. I can't do this in Excel. It's ridiculous, right? I'll look ridiculous. I got to practice what I preach. And that's when I realized, like, oh my gosh, I'm advocating for this technology, but do I really even understand what it all can do and who's out there doing it? And that's how I was able to get connected with David and Sunlight to help solve that problem.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So, by the way, I would say never underestimate Excel.
Right. We do a lot in Excel.
I've seen some pretty amazing things done in Excel. We could probably send a person to the moon if we wanted to.
I love Excel, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just probably the world's greatest software application, but it does have limitations, right? And, so you're looking to make this evolution and potentially transition to, I don't think we need to understand the distinction between Class 1 and Class 2. You're looking to commercialize some of your stuff. So, David, you're hearing this story. And so tell us from a tech perspective, someone that's built a lot of this back office policy management software, that straight through processing. Talk about the interaction and the types of questions you needed to ask to try to understand what was going on in Zach's world, or what he was fantasizing about where he was going.
Yeah, and that's really the path that we have ahead of us right now, Zach and I, is getting a better fundamental understanding of how we want to try and basically layer a system on top of the business that Zach and his team has created. So that'll be good work that's ahead of us. I think maybe to step back for just a second, feel very fortunate to have met Zach. You just got a pretty good window into what the considerations for it from Butler were. And at the point at which we crossed paths, it was, me trying to figure out how can I solve a fundamental consideration for Sunlight. And that is, we're a smaller company, we're newer. I want to get people to know who we are and be familiar with our product. And education is very interesting. Zach has a unique window into a number of students each year that are going to go fill roles at the type of companies that, of course, we would like to do business with. And we have this unbelievable opportunity to not only kind of get in and good on the ground floor and get that level of familiarity up and get some little evangelist satellites out there working for Sunlight as they move through the program and go and work for these companies, but a really unique opportunity to partner with academia and support Butler's mission of not only supporting students and educating students, but getting them prepared for what's next in their lives. So we feel really good about just kind of where we sit in that partnership. As far as the types of questions, I'd say Sunlight didn't have many concerns from a business perspective. We are well versed in the type of products that Zach and his team are offering, and from a functional standpoint, no real issues. I think where we were really challenged and where Zach and I are going to have to figure out something that works well is more in the operational model and the delivery model. This would be a non-traditional deployment for Sunlight. We want to have Zach and his team and their students actually deliver it, which is a really unique aspect of what we're doing. When it comes time to take Zach's insurance products, and as they scale this to potentially, a different type of captive, or maybe they scale it outside the Butler network. Maybe they decide that they want to start operating some of their existing lines and scaling that to where they're offered today. We wanted to have their team work on the delivery, because the one thing that we're going to be really challenged with is there's a rotating door of faces. There is going to be, on an annual basis, new people that need to become familiar with Sunlight. And how do we get a kind of a knowledge depth within Butler that is scalable from year to year, and where there is that knowledge base and where they can maintain their own solution. And as they want to offer new products, they have the wherewithal within Sunlight to be able to deliver that. So what we've come up with, I think, is a really good operational model to get Sunlight more visibility directly into the classroom, where they'll get to be hands-on a little bit more quickly. We use them to support some of the exploration of what they're doing in their captive analysis, and to be able to provide training seminars and provide kind of co-configuration sessions, so that we can really do kind of a true solution handoff and let Sunlight become best practice consultants for how to operate something that they know very much about, which is captive insurance and the products that they offer, and be able to do it within a system like Sunlight. So as far as those questions that we have to get into, that's really what's going to be ahead of us over the first semester that we do that, understanding how their products function, understanding how their organization functions, how they want the different pieces from Zach's underwriting team to their claims team and their billing team, how they want to work with one another. And that is really how we get the true juices flowing in Sunlight about how we're going to configure this to really meet the needs of the Butler RMI. So I think that's kind of the first thing that we had ahead of us in semester one of our partnership.
Zach, it's probably been a few years since you were exposed from a risk management standpoint, being at a Fortune 500 company. How, when you started to think through this and you started to have the conversations, was it like Back to the Future? Like, and what I mean by that is, like, in my experience, the tech has just like exploded in the last few years. So I'm wondering, like, even from your standpoint as someone who's very enriched, a very high position, very legacy oriented position in insurance, how much did you have to learn, coming back in and trying to understand what should I do with tech? I'm wondering what your learning curve was.
Yeah, for me, I was definitely surprised. I mean, there definitely was a learning curve. I'm a naturally kind of curious guy. I'm reading a book about string theory over the summer, and I was doing Ethereum mining. I got interested in the blockchain. One of the first epiphanies I had a number of years ago was, geez, if you've got a blockchain-enabled transaction, do you really even need any reinsurance intermediary anymore? Like, what would stop a sophisticated seller of risk and a sophisticated buyer of risk from eliminating that intermediary and just going straight to the blockchain? So I started, mining Ethereum and writing articles to try and get my arms around that. And that's basically, there was a learning curve, but one of the benefits of my job that I really enjoy is I have the time to pursue that. So I got to spend, for example, the entirety of last summer talking to, David McFarlin, 𝗬𝗏 Risk Management, who connected me with Dave and Sunlight, to Jeff Hodson, who's a man who owns a lot of companies, who's looking at revolutionizing how he buys insurance and what the insurance transaction looks like. And so you're right, the technology is different, and what you can do with it is amazing. And here's some of the things I've really taken away from it. I don't think the insurance industry understands how powerful this technology is. When you have technology that can change the risk behavior of an insured, you almost have to ask, does it disintermediate the insurance carrier? Right? As a risk manager, one of the things I know is a lot of insurance is bought by corporations because they don't know enough about the risk to give themselves permission to not buy the insurance or to not buy as much insurance. And what the technology that's out there allows you to do is understand your risk to a level where you can make more targeted decisions. And you can start saying, I don't maybe need all of these different lines of insurance. So I don't know that the insurance industry necessarily understands what the implications of that are. The other thing I figured out is, and this is through looking at databases like Crunchbase, only about 2.5% of insurtech investment goes into commercial lines. Most of it's personal lines because it's really easy when you got big pools of risk of drivers and homes and all those kind of things. I used to insure the world's only $1 billion coffee plant. You can't AI your way out of that, right? The risk of that plant depends on a lot of manual factors that you would have to account for. Same thing for universities, right? Butler has the world's only university-run insurance company by students. Up the road, Purdue has a nuclear reactor. So it's very hard to bring that kind of technology into bespoke risk. But here's the funny thing. There's a lot of technology out there that could be put to that purpose. There's drone mapping companies that can read manhole covers from space that don't necessarily understand the insurance implications of what they've done. I've met a company that developed a smart cargo container hooked up to the blockchain and telematics, to allow them to ship cargo further with less handling of it. Well, guess what? If you have that kind of technology, that sounds like a really cool inland marine product recall, ocean marine type insurance product that could never have existed in the past. And so all these opportunities are out there. And what the pandemic has really done is poured gasoline on all this innovation. I mean, it's things that people maybe wouldn't have considered in the past or wouldn't have considered as quickly are now on the table. And so, yeah, you're right. There is a huge learning curve. And I have been gobsmacked with all that you could do with the technology, to the point where I think that the insurance industry is about to fundamentally change in ways that most people don't really understand. I think the legacy insurance industry is going to start to be supplanted by what I call new hybrid insurers like Tesla, Google, Amazon, and others that are forced to monetize risk in order to be able to cover the things that they have, like pandemics and intellectual property.
Yeah.
I think too, one of the interesting things that you mentioned about Zach's learning curve is we view this to be one of the more beneficial parts of the relationship to Sunlight, and that is that we're going to have like I mentioned before, we're going to have an audience of people who are well educated and hungry, but aren't entrenched in the type of software that carriers maybe have been using for a long time, and where culturally they often have a hard time being able to break away from the day-to-day systems that they use to run their business today. I look forward to getting all sorts of really interesting, goofy ideas from Zach's students about how they want to engage. They're going to be future purchases of insurance. How do they want to engage their insurance company? How do they want to be treated? What type of experience they want to have as policyholders? What their expectation of engaging technology in this way is, either as a potential policyholder in the future or as an underwriter in Zach's class. And one of the really interesting conversations I had following is with one of our new clients, and I said, we're going to be working with Butler, and this is kind of how we're going to be working with them. And they said, well, man, I feel great. You know, your product's never going to get stale. And I said, well, that's a really interesting way of looking at it, whether it's to support some of the new and innovative things Butler wants to do, or whether it's from just the traditional product loop feedback of working with really bright, intelligent, energetic kids who, not really kids, I guess, anymore, young adults. But again, people that haven't really been conditioned by a system or conditioned by a corporation, and they haven't really had to fit within a box yet. We think that'll be ultimately really valuable to the growth of our software and the longevity of our software too. And we got really great feedback from our insurance carrier clients on that. And I guess that was a little bit, that was one of the things that we didn't necessarily anticipate.
Yeah, and that's probably a big benefit, as you mentioned. The students that would come through college now are all digital natives. And so a lot of them have had coding sometime in the back. And I know, David, one of the value adds that you talked about when I interviewed you a little while back was the whole, we want to push the work down to the boots on the ground. Like, if the underwriters realize there needs to be a rating change or something, push it down so they can make the change. Like, there's no reason why it has to route through, some IT person that may not understand it. Put the power in the fingertips of those folks. It seems really interesting that what you're doing here, you're going to have digital natives that know how to code. So my expectations are Sunlight's going to be like really busy, because they're going to be like, hey, why are you doing this? Like, give this to us. You should be giving this to us. Like, let us do these pieces. And it could be very enriching that way, that, you would be on your toes, because they're going to force you to do that by poking holes.
Absolutely. We imagine that they will completely poke holes in some of the experiences that we have as users and for all different domains. And we expect them to hit the ground running, because even though what you talked about is more of our business user configuration, I think it's fair to say that the overall tech savviness that comes in through Zach's class is probably higher than the average user at, say, a carrier that's working today, and just their fundamental understanding of technology. And yes, they're so well versed in some of the other services and insurtechs that are out there that provide tremendous value, that we imagine getting some introductions into functionality and services that we can incorporate into our clients in Sunlight that'll ultimately be very valuable. I mean, we talked about our APIs and web services that are today used for, system-to-system integration, but also for really unique data services that act as great underwriting tools. And if there's companies out there that Zach says, like a hazard hub, there's this new version of something out there that's really easy to integrate with, that provides some unbelievable data, and that's being pushed on us by an audience like the one that we have to work with Butler, that speaks volumes about things that are going to be happening 3, 4, 5 years from now that we don't want to then incorporate, that we don't want to then see 3 years from now once it's too late and it's no longer sexy or fresh or cool. And so we imagine that our product really does stand to benefit from having a different type of eyes on it than traditionally in insurtech, the eyes that would be on it. So
Be careful what you wish for, David.
Yes. As I say this, the team of business analysts at Sunlight, who will all have to be responsive to this, are all curling up in a ball. But
these students can do amazing things. A lot of times I'm prepared for everything except for our schemes to work, and they always work because the students are incredible.
Zach, I'm curious. Butler University is in high class institution of higher learning, right? So probably have a significant tech program at Butler, I would guess. Were there any discussions or any thoughts on your part to, hey, let's just build it ourselves? We have students.
It's interesting because we do have those elements within Butler. We have a computer science program that's in a different college than one I'm in, and of course we have our management information system major here in this college. And no, we didn't. I mean, I think that one, probably lack of understanding or communication between different areas about what everybody's doing. One of the things that we've tried to do with our student-run captive is make sure that it's a toy that other academic programs can play with. So, for example, we work with Dr. Dan McFarlin in our marketing program in his marketing capstone class. They actually had marketing students do market research for us on what products we might want to offer. If we want to sell insurance to bomb-sniffing dogs, or, for example, one of our original ideas was to insure all the live mascots at universities. Well, and there's a post on LinkedIn. We had a Zoom with all the dogs on it, like 40 dogs on the call. They all said with their paws, no, we don't want it. We don't want to buy that insurance. And so that product died on the vine there. And that was an example where we came to that through a partnership with our marketing department. So that's not to say that we couldn't do it with our MIS folks or computer science folks, but what I think, what I envision happening is us getting far enough down the road to where I'm native, I don't even know what to ask them, right? I mean, that's part of the journey in this for me. I don't know anything about coding. Last time I took a coding class was in junior high on like C-DOS or something. And so, I like this because I don't want to go stale in my skills. I've had more than one person around the world say to me, the future of underwriting is being a coder. And so I'm interested in learning how to do all this stuff. And what I suspect is I start to learn more about it and how it works and start to ask more informed questions of my peers in those other areas, we'll find those natural places to start working together and continue down that road.
Okay.
And I know before we really get into the meat of what it'll take to move the Davy RMI and take their products and move them into Sunlight and behind Sunlight, one of the things that we're excited about is getting Sunlight more involved in the curriculum itself, and to be able to support some of the exploration that they're doing as part of the master's class. So, I know Zach and I have been looking at the curriculum a little bit and kind of what modules to slot Sunlight into and where we could best support conversations. And that'll really be where we hit the ground running, where their students get their hands on the software for the first time, probably use it to support a couple of different case studies that they're looking at, and where you can use it for more a specific targeted purpose. And then as the familiarity grows and as their conversations within Butler continue to extend on what their plans are for the captive, we'll support each other in either getting those products up and running in Sunlight, and of course finding different ways of extending the use of Sunlight as a teaching tool in the classroom. One of the things that I think we were talking about a little while ago is Sunlight has like a rate analyzer tool that we can use to forecast retention. And so we can go and play around with, if we were to change different rating factors in Zach's product and the rate were to change at different levels based on some of the retention data that he can make available to us that we can put into Sunlight, we can start forecasting retention for some of the various lines should they take them outside the Butler community and potentially charge more of a premium for that. So we're starting to look at kind of more narrow use cases like that initially, to where we could see Sunlight being of support in things that they would otherwise just be doing as part of the curriculum. And then again, as we go further down the path of the RMI itself and of the captive group, it's okay, how can we best use Sunlight to administer these products, and how can we best use Sunlight to maybe scale what they're doing now to other universities that potentially want to put this type of model in place, because it is repeatable. And I think very, very, very highly of Zach and for what he's been able to do at Butler. And from our conversations, it seems quite keen to make this something that a lot of universities benefit from, especially as we mentioned, as we talked about at the onset, universities look for other revenue sources potentially that aren't just tuition and room and board, which I think in the current state that we're in right now, I think that sounds attractive for the majority of non-$15 billion endowment universities that are out there. So we see ourselves playing a critical role in that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so let's talk about that traction, right? So when you get to that point, one of the challenges, of course, as you introduce technology into something that's already running, is that thing's running. You can't disrupt it. You don't want to disrupt it. It's got a purpose, a reason for being. And so could you, both of you, if you, I don't care, it doesn't really matter how you guys want to answer this, but how do you envision the potential traction on that? How do you change a tire when you're going at 65 miles an hour?
Well, I'll tee off on that, because I think the great thing about this is we're able to segregate the different parts of our captive. So we have actually the one MJ student run captive, but we don't have to disrupt the lines of coverage that we're currently providing for the university. We can continue to run that through Excel make changes to the policy in a Word document and sign it and all that kind of good stuff. We don't have to change anything with the undergraduate program. What we're actually looking at is, do we become a commercial? We talked about class 2 and 3, and sorry for getting in the weeds there. That's the geek in me, but that you hit it right on the head. Do we want to become a commercial insurance company? We want to start selling insurance to other people. And fortunately, we've been through this before. There's a process to how you do this. I mean, it's really like how any startup would set off, but we have, because of the parameters that we're following as an educational entity, we have a little bit more latitude. So the way we typically do this, we're in what I would call the ideation year. We need to understand what products we might potentially sell. We need to understand what the ramifications of selling those products are and what kind of underwriting risk, what kind of capital is going to be required. And when you do something like this, and this was true with the MJ student-run captive the first time, you really have to understand the expense side of it. That's the most important side. I mean, I'm not a for-profit insurance company. I don't necessarily have to, design an insurance company that's going to make the most amount of money humanly possible. Now, David's right. We do want to actually try and make some money from this captive and help contribute towards Butler's bottom line and, subsidize the cost of residential education. But frankly, for me to have something that provides a really kick-ass educational experience and just breaks even, it's fantastic. So the undergraduate program, we make about $5,000-7,000 a year. It's not a ton of money. But for us, what we need to understand through our master's program and what the students are going to be working on this semester is we're going to be analyzing the risks of Butler, but we're not looking for the most serious risks. We're looking for the most monetizable risks. What are risks that could be monetized through the captive, either risks of Butler or risks that could be tried? Perhaps we offer pet insurance to our employees as a proof of concept, the non-ERISA benefit, and then we decide that works. And so we go to David to build a pet insurance, platform to be able to offer that to other universities and other institutions. And so for us, it's really about understanding, before we could even start selling an insurance product, I need to understand I needed a Sunlight Solutions, right? I had to start, and that's what really created that epiphany is like, man, I need a back office. Like, what does that mean? Do I need HR? Do I need legal? What all am I going to need to run an actual for-profit insurance company? One of the first things that really came to mind is the technology side of this. We can get the technology right, and then we can figure out what's left, and then we can, all we at that point then is need a product that can cover our expenses, isn't going to bankrupt the university, and has the potential to generate profit. And that's one of the reasons why we like dogs, and you're probably likely to see us do, bomb sniffing dogs or care dogs, and dogs are only so expensive. It's like dental insurance. There's only 32 teeth in your mouth. How can you really lose your butt on dental insurance? I would like to hope that dogs have the same kind of approach.
Yeah. Plus, you have an expertise. That always helps.
Well, that's right, and that's what we're actually covering with care dogs and animal mortality dogs and bomb sniffing dogs is the actual cost to train the animal, not necessarily the animal itself. Mm-hmm. And we do have a lot of expertise here about how you train and run those kind of programs.
Yeah. So going forward, how do you know if let's talk about success. What's success look like?
Success to me is we get a product that we can sell. So we actually are having some conversations with the Shriners about maybe insuring the care dogs at Shriner Hospital. And so, if we're able to identify a product that we're able to sell and we're able to set up the back office to support all that, and we're just kind of off to the races, running our insurance company and using it to teach students, I think it'll be success. I think it'll look a lot like what it looks like now in the undergraduate program. The difference being we're hopefully turning a profit, and we hopefully have the type of program in place where, we have reinsurance. We have the kind of things at the end of the day, we don't want to bankrupt the university. You have to mind the core mission of anything you're doing. And the core mission of this university is to be a world-class academic institution. It doesn't make sense to jeopardize, that 100-year-plus heritage just to make a fast buck. And so we want to be very thoughtful, very prudent about what we do and how we do it, and always err on the side of, making less money in favor of more education and more prudency.
I think on the Sunlight side, success has a few different dimensions. One, always the success of our client, and in this case, that's Butler. So our partner is Butler in this, and the success of their RMI and their being able to achieve and scale the program to the success that they want is ultimately what will be successful for Sunlight. I think getting them into a self-service mode will be successful. Being able to cleanly deploy it and get a solid knowledge base about Sunlight within Butler, I think that will ultimately make this more successful. And then I think there's a tail to the success too, just like in your insurance coverage. And that is, 2-3 years down the line, I think we'll see if there's success if someone sends me an email to my inbox that says, "Hey, David, we started to explore this at so-and-so insurance company, and I really thought Sunlight may have been of service," and knowing that person came out of the Butler RMI and that Sunlight was in mind because we had worked together in the classroom and worked to get the 𝗕𝗏𝗴𝗰𝗵 captive up and running. And so that kind of return as well down the road, which is when we talked about kind of having these little Sunlight evangelists out there, that's certainly something that we hope to accomplish. So.
Yeah. And for me, really, honestly, just quickly, I would like to see Indianapolis become the center of insurtech innovation, right? Indiana is one of the highest concentrations of insurance programs in the nation, with Ball State, Indiana State, Ivy Tech, St. Francis, Butler University. I mean, my peers at the other schools in Indiana do an excellent job. We have some of the best talent here in Indiana, and with everything that's happening in the large cities, and if you're going to be an insurtech, why not do that in Indianapolis? Why not do that at Butler? Why not come where the talent is? And so for me, it's not just about the partnership with Sunlight, although I'm really looking forward to that. It's creating an ecosystem where, that drone mapping company, perhaps we perfect a product. We talked about, can we use a drone map of campus to put a geofence around campus and then RFID chip all the fine art that we insure? And if someone tries to steal it, it automatically sends a text to BUPD, and, they're there with the bomb sniffing dog and the students, and classic Scooby-Doo, right? They would have gotten away if it hadn't been for those kids and their dog. But is there other opportunities like that where we can use this campus as a small city and this insurance company as a laboratory for further innovation and really make Indiana a home for insurtech and insurance, the way Silicon Valley is for other businesses?
Yeah, and I think if we're successful in this as well, I think other universities will take note. So I think, ultimately one of the measurements of success is in 5 years' time, if we're still talking about Butler as potentially the only university that's out there with a student-run captive, and whether you see some of our peers in the insurtech industry start partnering a little bit more with academia. I know that's a fairly unique thing that we're doing here. You're used to seeing it more on the carrier side, mm-hmm. And I think there is certainly a vested interest that firms would have in sponsoring and partnering with Butler. I haven't seen a whole lot of that from the insurtechs and from the vendors going directly to academia, and my expectation would be that several years from now, where we're likely not the only one, and that's okay with us too. This is for the betterment of Butler students. This is pushing the risk management industry forward, and having Sunlight as a driving component of it. The competition isn't a negative; it's validation that what we're doing is working. So we're excited about that.
Very worthwhile. So a couple more questions before we end this. I'm wondering if there's any advice. So, I wanted the theme for this to be how tech and incumbents in the insurance sphere, how they can work together, like what that dynamic should look like. This is I think encapsulates that. If we could walk away with some advice from each of you on how both sides should look at that particular relationship as it's starting and maturing. Do you have any advice? Zach, you could probably speak to the incumbents, David to the tech companies, but how should those two pieces talk to one another? Because from what I see, it still feels like a lot of oil and water.
It does take the right kind of mindset. I mean, one of the things that attracted me to Butler University is we're a very innovative university. We have a big focus on experiential learning. And so, when I went to set up the student-run captive the first time with our undergraduate students, I mean, I expected to be laughed out of the CFO's office. Like, hey, I want to take $250,000 that was donated by MJ Insurance, and I want to get a bunch of undergraduate students, and we want to set up an international insurance company in Bermuda, and do that right now during the 2016 election when, Trump's yelling at everybody about staying on shore. How's that sound? And they're like, yeah, let's see if it works. And it was amazing. I mean, and it was great. And obviously there's certain parameters about how we do this right. But the default position was, if this makes sense and there's going to be benefit to it, let's see if we can find a way to yes before we start worrying about no. And I'm here to tell you that not a lot of corporations operate that way, let alone universities. Yeah. And so I think for insurtechs out there, I think it's important to partner with the right academic institutions. I think it's important to partner with 𝗕𝗏𝗴𝗰𝗵, the collegiate insurance fraternity, as a way to get visibility in front of all the other academic programs out there. But I think for for both sides of the partnership, you have to approach it from, everybody's got to win, right? I mean, we don't want to commercialize our classroom. That's not the intent here. We try to stay product agnostic, but at the same time, Sunlight's willing to offer very powerful software to us at, reduced cost, subsidized cost, and bring their expertise into the classroom. We understand there has to be a benefit for them as well. And what does that look like? And so I think if everybody approaches it from the standpoint of, students first, students always, there has to be an educational mission there. But at the same time, is there a way to make sure that everybody's able to win? And if that's the case, it should work.
I think on the technology side, it's just a willingness to understand that potentially, returns on a partnership can come in a lot of different ways. And I think that maybe the reason why something like this hasn't been done previously, or you haven't seen more outreach, is because when Zach kind of mentioned it, and I don't want to get into the financials, of course, but we don't look at this as a traditional client. Butler's not a traditional client of ours. And I think other firms where they may have said, okay, this is what we traditionally charge, or this is the type of arrangement that we have, knowing that that wasn't going to be something that was realistic for the model that we wanted to put in place with Butler, may have scared some out of the room. I think luckily at Sunlight, we've got leadership and we've got folks that are forward thinking enough to realize that there was a lot of benefits of being able to work with Butler on this initiative that where the return are felt beyond maybe just the initial dollars and cents. And so to have that type of wherewithal is something that I was fortunate to have leadership at Sunlight that were very supportive when I brought this partnership to them and said, okay, here's the thing, we're not going to charge them a lot. And this isn't going to, we're not going to be able to change the face of our company immediately as a result. But here's some really, really interesting things that we get as an organization from working with Butler. Here's the ecosystem that Butler is already a part of which Sunlight wants to be part of that ecosystem and make those type of friends. Here's where we could see this scaling and kind of multiplying long term. I think we've already started to see that come into place. Butler and Zach have been extremely gracious about introducing us to the ecosystem of partners that they have that support the RMI and the captive. And we kind of all look forward to learning from one another and growing with one another. And who knows what this thing looks like 2 to 3 years from now. So
that's what I like
really
about
excited.
That's what I like. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's what I like about you, David, so much is, when I talk to him, it's never, who can we sell? Who can I be introduced to? It's what can I learn? What can we learn about our products? Or what can we learn about the way? And one of the things I found, Nick, and, in my adventures of learning about InsurTech is InsurTech can be a little too cocky. They're pretty heavy on the tech. Not a lot of them know much about insurance. And, if you can't sit here and tell me what the 6 tenets of insurability are and how to form a risk pool without adverse selection and some of these other things, I run into a lot of InsurTech people that really don't understand insurance. And I would hear a lot of anecdotes about, oh, we've got this whiz-bang technology, we don't need to know anything about insurance. And so I think for the InsurTechs out there to understand that there really is something special about an undergraduate and a graduate education in risk and insurance. With 82 programs out there, you maybe haven't run into someone with that background, but you're starting to see the benefit of having that education. My friend Brad Robinson, who was a former mentee of mine, is the risk manager of the NCAA. They just confirmed $270 million worth of insurance for the pandemic. Why does Brad have insurance for the pandemic when it's supposedly uninsurable? Because Brad has a wonderful risk management education from Ball State University. And he understands, and with that powerful risk management education, you end up on the right side of history. You end up with that pandemic insurance. And what I want the InsurTechs to understand is we make people just like Brad here at Butler as well, people with the background that I have. And, imagine how effective your products can be when you really, truly understand insurance. That's why you only see 2.5% investment in commercial lines. Because if you're not native to the insurance industry, that's a really complicated industry to try and understand without any insurance background. And by working with a program like Butler, I think we will enable that type of understanding for these companies to be more effective.
Yep. It's one of the things that you brought up that I think is just so valuable for those that are listening on either side is what the relationship part of it. I know personally, the 2 large reinsurers that I work with, one of the things that I think separates my business relationship with them is they flat out come out and say, we don't know everything. And so part of why we want to partner with you is we want you to teach us, and it can go both ways. And I think I'm hoping that's one thing that can sort of come out of this for those that are listening, is that even if you're in an incumbent system and, with a very old legacy IT debt, or if you're a tech company that's coming in, you don't know a lot about insurance, there's an additional element there beyond the dollars. And it's the learning, because we're all sort of in this together in a kind of a corny way, but we are in a lot in this together. And going back to Zach, you were talking about how as new tech gets introduced, like how a lot of you and your students are thinking of, oh, we could use this to do this, and we can use this to do that. I think the takeaway from this, if you're an incumbent in either side, is that you don't know everything. And so if you come into it with something beyond, it doesn't have to be like purely altruistic. You can be selfish in your curiosity, selfish in your learning. You just don't be selfish in the financial transaction. I
Right.
think that's a recipe for success.
I still remember when I got my first job, it was with Jeff Hoke, who's now risk manager at Honda. And I was interviewing with Jeff, and he said, Zach, I like you, but I don't want somebody who thinks they know everything. And I said, Jeff, I don't know a damn thing. I know one thing. And he said, what do you know, Zach? And I said, I know when to be smart enough to get somebody smarter than me. And I've lived by that my whole career. I tell students that's the first rule of risk management. Everything we deal with is, I mean, think about it. COVID-19, who would have ever thought we'd be having a Zoom this far into this and all this stuff going on? This is, one of those unimaginable black swan kind of risks. And that's what risk management is about. It's about preparing for something that has never happened before and might never happen again. That's a very unique skill set to have. Not everybody has that.
Yeah. So final question is, would this relationship have occurred without COVID?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. Yeah, because I had this epiphany that I can't run the powers that be here are saying, Zach, we really want to have a commercial insurance company run by our master students and really do that. And so that was always going to happen. And I had the epiphany well before COVID, like I can't credibly run an insurance company in Excel and then be out there on LinkedIn, telling everybody about how they should be an insurtech. And so, yeah, this was always going to happen. I would say, if anything, COVID is maybe slowing us down a little bit, because we were in a position where we were potentially going to be selling insurance to an airport for bomb sniffing dogs and to law enforcement for bomb sniffing dogs. And what are two things that are happening right now, right? Law enforcement is having issues, challenges about how they're funded and what they have funds available for. And airports don't have the kind of funds they used to have because nobody's traveling. And so, from my perspective, before COVID, we had two products that we would already be down the road of designing, maybe some systems for with David, whereas now we're a little bit back to the drawing board. What products make sense in this new landscape that we find ourselves in.
Same, David?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's slowing down. It's given Butler a whole nother list of priorities that they didn't plan for back in February, right? So it's just things have been juggled at Butler just like anywhere else, just like they have at Sunlight. And so, yeah, I slowed down a little, but still moving at a good pace. And, we're here talking about it publicly, which is great. And Zach's classes start soon, and Sunlight will be in the classroom by the middle of October or early November. So slowed a little bit, but we're still moving at a good pace.
Yep. Well, keep us in the loop on this. This will be an interesting follow-up. I think this will be my academic thesis, a use case on tech and industry merging together to move forward. I think this could be one of those, I won't call it an HBS use case. We'll call it a Butler University use case for your business school. We'll rebrand it, but this could be one of those interesting things that we could point to and say, that's kind of how you want to do it. That's how it's done. That's the the scenario that you want to instill to have a positive outcome.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that, and I appreciate you helping to get this out there. I mean, we're that's one of the things we want to do at Butler is we want to be seen as a leading voice in what comes next. And I have a lot of great peers at other academic programs. I learned a tremendous amount from them, and this is hopefully our contribution on what we can show other folks how to do something like this.
Yep.
Absolutely. Same for Sunlight. We want to be looked at as a system and as a solution that helps push the industry forward and keeps them untethered from legacy constraints. And we see this as one of those rare opportunities where there's really no concessions. There's not a lot of give and take here. There's not a lot of, okay, you win in this regard and we'll take one on the chin here. And we just see this as being nothing but wins for everyone. And when opportunities like that come along, you need to be savvy enough to hang on to them. So I think that's what hopefully what Zach and I have started here.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for the conversation. I'm sure we're going to stay in touch. For all those that are listening, we'll have Zach's connections. You can link with David on the show notes. You can get the transcripts. Please subscribe to this. For Zach and David, again, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
for having us, guys. Really appreciate it.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color